What's up, everyone? We're getting started here. The live interview with the great Ed Cherry's in the house.
Yes, sir.
Man, that was super fun. So glad you could be here.
Yeah, that was fun playing earlier.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
first time.
that.
I mean, yeah, we never
played together at all.
And the first time we were really hanging, talking.
Yeah, really. Nice.
So, yeah, thank you for being here. And so let's just get straight into it.
Yeah.
So you've been here, since the late 70s, man.
Yeah, I moved to New York in, I forget which month, but it was late 77, early 78.
Mm-hmm.
I came from New Haven. My dad packed up his car and helped me move to Inwood, upper Manhattan.
Oh, you were living in Inwood?
Yeah, I was living in Inwood. And had a little studio apartment. But I had been coming in and out of New York before then. I started coming into New York around 74, 75.
Was that
75.
Was that to play jam sessions or just
no,
to visit?
it was just to like hear the music.
Mm-hmm.
And the network, meet cats, and then in 1976, I met Rodney Jones. I went to see Dizzy play at Wesleyan University up near Hartford, Connecticut, and Rodney was in the band, and we met, and he introduced me to his guitar teacher.
Who was that?
He had taken some lessons, many lessons with this guitarist named Bruce Johnson.
Okay.
Bruce met
Right.
Rodney when he was about 14 or 15. And Rodney introduced me to Bruce. So I started taking lessons from Bruce around 1975, 76. So I was coming in and out of New York to take my lessons with Bruce. And then I started meeting people through Bruce, Marvin Horn and, Vernon Reed and all these people, they all knew Bruce and would come by his house and blah, blah, blah. And so...
Are you and Rodney around the same age?
Rodney's maybe 5 years younger than me, I think. And so anyway, I was just coming in and out of New York so much, I just said, hey, I should just move here, So I found an apartment in the Village Voice.
In the Village Voice, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true. They used to have, there was a
you
whole
could
section.
do that at one time.
It was still around when I moved here, yeah.
And I was able to afford the apartment. I had a messenger service job.
Do you remember what the rent was?
$115 a month.
Damn. Shit. Where's that at, man? Where's the Village Voice?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But anyway, yeah, so I moved to New York in early 78.
But so you weren't playing with Dizzy yet at that point?
No, I got the gig the same year actually that I moved to New York.
Was that the direct
crazy.
result of you just kind of being here at that time when he was looking?
Yeah.
Rodney Jones hooked you up, right?
Yeah, Rodney hooked me up. Rodney had been in the band for about 3 years or so at that point, and he decided to leave the band, and he recommended me.
That's cool.
And I would go see the band when they would play in New York at the Village Gate or wherever they were playing, and Dizzy recognized me, from hanging out backstage.
Okay.
So he said, "Oh yeah, yeah." So. Rodney gave me a couple of cassettes, said, learn the music. There were no charts, no charts, just had some live cassette tapes that I had to learn from,
Yeah.
And that was it. So my first gig in Dizzy's band was on his birthday, actually. October 21st. Was 1978 was my first gig.
That was like 2 weeks after I was born, man. I was born October 8th. October 8th, 78.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I'm October 12th.
Yeah, you're Libra. That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's
a lot of Libras,
story.
man. Nick's a Libra too.
Oh, is he?
The first two guests this season is Libras.
Yeah. What date do you know?
Nick is I think he's in September though. Yeah, he's
yeah.
like around the 26th, I think.
Yeah.
September 26th.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dizzy's a Libra. Art Blakey's Libra.
A lot of Libras.
I
We were talking about
think
that.
Monk is Libra, isn't he? I think Thelonious Monk is.
I think he is.
Libra.
There's a lot of Libras and Aries.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Libra energy, man. It's good energy.
Yeah.
So you were living up here. So you Inwood.
Inwood.
So anyone that's above Harlem for people
that's
that are
like
not from New York.
yeah, it's the A train to the last stop is like 207th Street and Broadway.
Was it still pretty kind of Latin at that around
No,
that time?
not at all. It was there were some Spanish people there, but it was mostly Irish, Polish, and some Latin people, some Spanish people.
Yeah.
But it was mostly, Irish, Polish families, Latin families. It was a very quiet family area.
But you were, I mean, New Haven, right? Yeah.
New Haven.
So New Haven is like, I mean, now so many cats are from there.
Wayne Escoffery is
yeah,
I think
Wayne
is from
Escoffery.
there.
There's a school there that Jackie McLean was teaching at, right?
In Hartford.
Yeah. Oh, that's Hartford.
Yeah.
I always confuse New Haven and Hartford.
Yeah.
I'll never get it.
My parents knew Jackie and Dolly. They from like the social scene,
Yeah.
in New Haven, Hartford area. They knew each other from fundraisers and stuff like that. They were very into all of that. And
But
so
you were working back then, right? Like in your hometown.
Yeah, before I moved to New York, I was working, playing with these organ-playing brothers, Bobby and Eddie Buster. I think I've mentioned them before in other situations where they were like mentors of mine before I moved to New York. And I think they're from Chicago, but they were living in Chicago back in the 60s, and they played organ, B3, killing B3 players, and they were like cats on the scene. They were working with, Sonny Stitt and
so they both
Gene
played
Ammons.
organ.
Yeah, they, and they both worked with, Sonny Stitt, Gene Ammons, Joe DiOrio,
Who had just passed away, right?
Yeah, Joe just passed away. And so I was working in New Haven with them, and before that, I was playing in, R&B bands and cover bands and stuff, and blues bands. Because my background is rock and blues,
Yeah.
And when I was 14, I was into Jimi Hendrix and James Brown and all of that, so.
But that guitar wasn't your first instrument, right? You played like
clarinet.
Clarinet.
Yeah.
Well, how old were you when you started playing clarinet?
I was in third grade. So I started in third grade until about sixth grade. Seventh grade, and then seventh grade, I think I started playing guitar.
I heard you wanted to play saxophone.
Yeah. Saxophone, but then I started seeing the guitar on TV, all the rock bands playing. So I said, I want to play that.
Easy choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
This is in the late 60s or like early?
Yeah. 67, 68.
Shit, man. You remember seeing, so much great music on television at that time.
Yeah. And back then you could see jazz on TV occasionally,
I mean,
when's the last time you saw a jazz band on TV?
The last time I could remember, and it was like probably the last time they were probably like, that's it, we gave it one more time. It was the Arsenio Hall show, and it was when he came back. Not the old one, but it was the second time. So Arsenio came back for a little while, and his guest was Wayne Shorter.
Oh,
and
nice.
Wayne played with Esperanza and Taylene Carrickton, and I can't remember who was playing piano in the band. It wasn't Danilo though, I believe.
No.
And they just it was like Arsenio. He's like, wow, jazz legend, Wayne Shorter, and he came out and they played the oudest shit I've ever heard, and they were probably like, shut it down, just cancel. I mean, they canceled the show. Like they were just like, that's it.
Wayne had the show canceled.
Never ever put jazz musicians on TV again, and just cancel the show. Let's get it.
Well, I remember public broadcasting used to have jazz groups on. I remember seeing George Benson with Earl Klugh on public TV. This is like early 70s. And Gary Burton with Larry Coryell. I remember seeing them on TV, public broadcasting, Pharoah Sanders, I vaguely remember seeing on TV.
Wow, on TV,
when's the last time you see Pharoah Sanders on TV? So it's been a minute.
Yeah.
Those days are
I mean,
done.
but there was so many people that had shows, like just variety hour kind of like talk shows, and I mean even Dinah Shore had like so many people on. Ella was always on her show, and Sinatra, and like, all the
Ed Sullivan, I think he had jazz groups once in a while. Ed Sullivan show. Yeah, you hip to that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's more like everybody remembers the Beatles, of course, but
Yeah. So.
So, but you ended up playing guitar. Your dad played guitar, right?
Yeah.
Or plays. Is your dad still around?
Yes. He's 95 and
Damn.
Still practicing.
He's still shedding. I'm going to get you one day.
Yeah. He's still trying
I'm coming for you.
He's still trying to get through that grade 1 book, Mel Bay grade 1.
Oh, yeah. I have that book somewhere.
Yeah, he's still
maybe
working on it.
finally
He's still
thrown it
working
away.
on it. So
He's like, one day.
Yeah.
Watch your gigs, watch your back.
Yeah, right. So that's that.
And he was listening to like Grant and Kenny Burrell and that kind of stuff?
So my dad kept jazz in our household. My parents were into the arts. My mom played piano a little bit, and she liked opera music, and I remember her dragging me to opera shows at Lincoln Center. I remember going to Lincoln Center with my mom, when I was about 10.
Man, I'm so jealous when I hear these kind of stories. But it's so common, but not for me.
And my mom was friends with, you've heard of Willie Ruff, Dwight Mitchell, Willie Ruff duo, bass and...
Oh, wow. No, I haven't heard of that.
French horn and piano, bass and piano. Willie Ruff played bass and French horn, and Dwight Mitchell was the pianist. And they're known from there's a famous recording with Dizzy Trio. Dizzy, Dwight Mitchell, and Willie Ruff at Yale University. Anyway, my parents knew Willie Ruff, and I remember them bringing me to local jazz club to see them when I was a little kid, So that was, and I still remember that like it was yesterday. Going to the club and sitting right up front, and Willie Ruff was playing his bass, and I was like, wow, look at that, sound coming out,
Right.
And, it was bass, drums, and piano.
So
trio.
they were completely like supportive of you deciding you wanted to be a musician.
So I asked them for a piano for guitar for Christmas, and they got it for me, and they were very supportive, and it was all good. They never stopped me playing,
Yeah.
And they allowed me to go out and hear music, They allowed me to go out late.
Did you have to be, at that time, you didn't have to be 21. No, or did you have to be 21 to get in the club? Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I was with my parents.
Okay.
Yeah. So...
but did they let you go?
But there were a lot of concerts
that
I could go to. I was 14, 13, 14. There were a lot of concerts coming through New Haven. So I saw all kinds of music. Hendrix and
oh, wow. You saw Hendrix?
Yeah, Hendrix and the Supremes I went to see, and the Temptations and James Brown and Jeff Beck and all of these groups, because New Haven was like one of the major spots in any touring band's itinerary. You're going up the East Coast and you stop in New Haven. Yale University is a big college town, blah blah blah. So a lot of those bands would stop And that was good for me because I went and saw most of them. Tower of Power,
That's killing.
All of those groups I saw. So
Shit.
that's, and I tell a lot of young cats. I say, when they're starting to play, I say, you got to go out and see the music, see the bands. Don't just look at them on YouTube. You
Right.
got to go out.
No, you got to go out.
You got to go out to the place. If you're in a town where there is music and there are older cats playing, go see them. Go look at them.
Yeah. Just be there.
Just be
Just
on the
be in the
scene
room.
and check them out.
Yeah.
And
It's funny because I meet a lot of people that come to New York to study. They're going to certain schools that I teach at, and they don't really go out. They're just like everything is like in school.
On a computer screen. Yeah.
Of course, it's a small, there's a small percentage of people, and I believe it's probably always been that way. It's like the really hungry guys, or gals or whatever. They're going out, and they're checking out the music. But the majority of people, they just expect to get everything in the
classroom,
within the classroom.
Yeah, that's a shame.
And it's like no, it's never been that way.
You got to go out and see how the guys dress, how they hold the instrument, the sound coming out of their amplifier if they play guitar, or whatever.
And I used to listen to records in Houston, and there was a few guys that I was like, I'm not really into their playing. And then when I moved to New York, and you hear them in a room, like in a club, and you hear the amp not going through mics and board and everything, it's like holy shit, man. It's like I remember I heard Peter Bernstein for the first time, and a lot of cats
with the sound of the guitar coming out of that amp.
That is not what I heard on the record. That was like that is the real shit.
That's like when I first moved to New York, I went to see Kenny Burrell. He's one of the first cats I went to see right after I moved to New York. He was playing at the Vanguard, and I went to see him, and the sound coming out of his amp, it was like, you don't hear that on the records,
No, you don't. It's hard to explain, but it's the first time, and it's weird for me to think about it now because, of course, I know. But at the time, there was just no one around in where I'm from.
Yeah.
Like that had a sound, that had sounds like people when you come to New York, and it's like, wow, you hear that live, and you're just like, that it just doesn't come through on records, not on a jazz recording,
right?
Like, maybe in major productions and stuff like that, but it's like when you got 15 minutes to get a sound for the whole band in a record date, there's no one's really worried about the guitar sound. But you moved to New York, and your parents, you were still pretty young at that time, so that your parents were just like totally supportive and like not worried about 20, you. Your parents were just like totally supportive and like not worried about
20,
you.
21, 22 when I moved to New York.
My parents were worried sick, man, when I moved here. I was like, you don't realize New York is a comparison to Houston is not, it's not really, it's not any, Houston is not safer, I'll say that. Especially not where my parents live, They're all worried about me. But you came in the 70s, so that shit was dangerous, man.
Yeah, well, New York, it was a different place. It was a whole different scene.
You guys, like, you went through all the hell so that, people like me can move to town and be like, this is nice. Times Square is beautiful.
No, it was not beautiful in 1978, 77, 70. It was Death Valley.
Yeah, literally, there was like serial killers and shit walking around there.
I remember seeing some kid just walk up to some tourist and just like punch him in the face and then run away. And
just for fun.
Yeah, just for fun.
Yeah.
Times Square, in the 70s.
Yeah.
Prostitutes, live sex shows. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And
there's Netflix now. You can watch these documentaries on Netflix. Like Times
Square
in the 70s.
Right.
I was like, is that Ed Sheeran in the background? No.
Coming out of that sex shop. Right, no.
You and Dizzy. No.
Right.
Oh man. But yeah, it was a crazy time, man.
Yeah.
And like everyone I talked to.
It was dangerous. It was dangerous, but it was a great time for the arts too.
Exactly.
There was a lot of
tension and like
and all of the grand masters of our music were still alive. Art Blakey and
You have some great
all
pictures,
those
man.
guys.
Like you're always posting great stuff on Facebook. Like,
Yeah, and those guys, they would come to jam sessions, and hang out, and listen to the young cats, and maybe even play. They did that to a degree. I remember a place called Bradley's.
yeah,
Was Bradley's open when you
I
moved
missed
here?
it. Yeah, I think it had closed like a year or two before I got here.
Oh yeah, that was a nice scene.
It was a piano room. Like
it was
two
a piano
pianos.
room. Yeah, but they had guitar in there from time to time, and all the grandmaster piano players would go in there to hang, and they check out the young guys playing and play themselves, and John Hicks and
Yeah.
Kenny Barron, Tommy Flanagan, whoever, all the usual suspects would hang.
I heard that Mesro, the club that Spike Wilner opened, is supposed to kind of be a reflection on what Bradley's was, right?
Yeah, similar.
Except one piano set too.
Similar. A similar scene, But
I have like
Tommy Flanagan is not hanging there though.
Yeah, exactly. I have a Kevin Eubanks record from Bradley's.
Oh yeah.
I think that's how I first heard of that place.
Yeah. I think he was playing with Kirk Lightsey.
Yeah.
He was in Kirk Lightsey's band.
Mm-hmm.
They did a couple of recordings from Bradley's.
Mm.
It was a nice time.
Speaking of, did you just post something on Facebook that you were hanging with Kevin Eubanks at the Vanguard or something?
Oh yeah, when I went to see Elvin Jones.
Elvin Jones, yeah.
Yeah, we kind of met up at the Vanguard.
Oh, you had a tape. You posted a picture of a tape.
I covertly taped the set.
That was when Elvin had guitar in the band.
Yeah, Marvin Horn. We went to see Marvin Horn play.
All the guitar players were like trying to get that gig.
Oh yeah. And Dizzy's gig.
Yeah.
Because there weren't that many cats that used guitar.
Sonny Rollins was using guitar.
Sonny Rollins. You had Chico Hamilton. You had Dizzy, and you had Elvin. And I think those were that I know about the more famous cats that used guitar in their band instead of piano. So a lot of guitar players were after that gig.
Yeah.
When I first joined the band, cats would come backstage with their guitar, trying to impress Dizzy, but he wasn't he didn't care.
Yeah.
But they were playing all the shredding shit, in front of with Dizzy in the room, and he knew what they were doing.
Exactly.
But he didn't care, if they only knew, they would.
Right.
They wouldn't have shown up. They wouldn't have just like wasted their time coming back there, But anyway, those were great gigs for guitar players.
Yeah. But it probably also was like, even though you had the gig, it was probably super inspiring just to be like, I'm gonna keep this gig. I'm gonna play, fucking go home and shed and keep, get better and better. It's like I feel like maybe today you don't have that energy anymore. People aren't showing up trying to take your gig anymore. They're too busy at home, like posting, and practicing, another chorus of Giant Steps. I'll put this online.
Right. To a track.
Yeah. That they downloaded.
Right. Exactly.
So you got to see the world, man, for the first time, because you hadn't toured before joining Dizzy, right?
No, I'd never been to Europe or anywhere really before that.
Do you remember that first gig in Europe, at least? Or man, checking your guitar?
Yeah. No, the first gig that I did in Europe was at the Montreux Jazz Festival.
Really?
Yeah, it was the Dizzy Gillespie's band with Clark Terry was a guest trumpet.
Damn.
And this alto player named Chris Woods, who's he was a great player, and he was in Clark Terry's band at that time.
Okay.
Late 70s. I think he died many years ago, Chris Wood, but he was a great player, and he was a guest. So it was 3 horns up front and Dizzy's band, and that was my first gig. I was I was petrified, It's like, oh shit, there's Clark Terry, cats hanging backstage. Maybe Sonny Rollins was backstage or whatever, you know. And I was like, oh man, you know.
Yeah, thrown in the fire, man.
Yeah, you know. So, but yeah, that was my first gig in Europe, Montreux Jazz Festival.
Was that part of a whole tour? Or were you guys on the road that whole summer?
Yeah, Dizzy would go to Europe maybe 2 or 3 times a year at least. And the tours would be anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you know.
Yeah. That first band was like what? Mike Longo was playing piano?
Mike was not in the band. Ben Brown was playing bass. This bass player named Ben Brown, who I think Dizzy had found in Buddy Rich's band.
Okay.
And Mickey Roker was on drums.
Killing.
And it was no piano, you know. So it was just a quartet. With a vocalist.
Mike Longo was the... Is that how you got... It was like an audition or something? Like, how did you get the gig?
It was where was it? It was at Mike Longo's house. You know, Mike was Dizzy's musical director for many years, but he had not been in the band for maybe almost 10 years that point. After Mike Longo, there were no more piano players. Dizzy started using guitar. He had a George Davis, guitarist named George Davis, who later on, I think after Dizzy's band, he became like a Broadway guy,
okay,
you know, doing Broadway shows. And then after George Davis, guitarist named Al Gaffa. Al Gaffa played in Dizzy's band for a lot of years, maybe 5-6 years. And then Rodney Jones came in the band.
Yeah.
You know.
And Rodney was playing with everybody in the 70s, it seems like.
Yeah, well, Rodney was in Chico Hamilton's band before Dizzy, you know. Yeah, he was in Chico Hamilton's band, and then he left to go play with Dizzy. And he was in Dizzy's band for about 3 or 4 years.
He hooked you up with the gig. Well, what did he go on to do after that?
Well, he tried to, you know, get his own band happening. But
okay.
I think that kind of fizzled. But he ended up playing like he ended up being very busy with Broadway and Apollo Theater and Rosie O'Donnell and TV stuff like that, you know. So he became very popular. He was very active with Broadway and TV in the early 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
You know, and
but that's cool, man. It's like at that time, I feel like that was a thing that just happened often. Like people pass gigs on to other, you know, recommend, you know, if you get a recommendation from so and so, you're in the band basically. I mean, you just got to not fuck it up.
Yeah. I heard that's how, you know, Miles found all of his great musicians. He just asked the other musicians in the band, or, you know. Yeah,
I mean, basically, whoever the musical director is, kind of
who's
like
good.
Yeah,
who's, you know, who's
cool.
good.
Call him up. Let's do a rehearsal.
Yeah, I heard this cat Wayne Shorter. He can play. You know?
He's all right.
Yeah, so you know, that's how it happens.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the story with that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
But you were working with a lot of you did the Paquito de Rivera.
Yeah, I was in Paquito's band for a short period of time, and I did one recording with him.
Yeah. Wait, is that no? It's Havana Cafe.
Havana Cafe. Yeah. That was early 90s, mid 90s, early 90s, something like that. Yeah, that was fun. That was Paquito's band and music was fun. And but at around that time, I was doing a lot of stuff. I was playing with John Patton too, and Jimmy Smith.
Oh, you did some Jimmy Smith gigs?
Yeah, that was a trip.
Of course. I don't think anyone, like I was telling Nicholas, I was like, I don't know anyone who's ever played with Jimmy Smith that doesn't have a story.
Yeah, Whitfield came in after me, You know,
Okay.
I was in the band, and then Mark Whitfield came in the band, and he stayed with Jimmy until he passed away, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
And then Henry Threadgill, I played with Henry. You know, all this was in the '90s.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on. Early
Yeah.
'90s was like
yeah,
a super happening time.
yeah.
Man.
There was a lot of activity in the '90s for a lot of
But
us.
that record, the Henry record you're on, there's like a lot of there's like 3 string instruments or something on there. I think I was like even hard for me to pick out like
There's a couple of recordings that I did with Henry. One had like 4 or 5 guitars.
yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. Like is it Song Out of My Trees? Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that had who was in that? Brandon Ross.
Man, I love Brandon.
Yeah, he's great. And Jerome Harris,
Mm-hmm.
James Emery, and me. And I think that was it.
Yeah. But there's a lot going on. I was like
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know who's who on this record. It's like, you know.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was 1994.
94.
But you had already did your first record at that point. 93, I think you did.
Yeah,
your first record.
92, 93, the first one came out. Yeah, and then I did another one shortly after that.
Which was surprising to me. I was checking out those records, and I was like, because I had never heard you play with like a chorus pedal or like a chorus sound. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I need to do a redo on all of those tunes.
I feel like at that time it was like,
well, that was the sound.
That was the sound.
That was
it's
the,
like
that
people
was,
using delay now.
Yeah,
or
yeah, that
something,
was
you
like that was the sound. It was like stereo chorus, you know. And
Did you have the Yamaha?
No, I didn't have that. I had a little pedal. I had what was I using? Some kind of, I don't even remember really, but I had a Boss delay. I think I saw one, you know, in your box, and I forget what the chorus was, but anyway, yeah, that was the sound. Early '90s, you know, '80s, '90s stereo.
Yeah, yeah. Mike Stern came over here, and he
Mike
still
Stern,
has the same
Mike
rack.
Stern was like the first cat that I heard, you know, used
Right.
in a jazz group using stereo chorus on his guitar.
Mm-hmm. And he came over here. He was like, "Yeah, I need 2 polytones. You got 2 polytones. I'll use both." And then he had his I forgot the model of that Yamaha, whatever it is that he carries around for that one chorus sound. But the funny thing about when he came over is he got out of the Uber and he had left it in the the trunk.
No.
And so, you know, I was just here waiting for him. And then when he got up, he was like, "Man, I just went through all this shit, man." It's like, I left my fucking Yamaha in the back of the Uber. And I was running down the street, like chasing him, like, "Hey, man, stop." And then somebody came and picked him up. Like they saw him running after the cab, like waving.
Really?
And somebody came up next to him and was like, "Hey, man, do you need a ride? Are you chasing that car?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, I left something in the trunk." And this guy just picked him up and went after the cab.
Wow.
Came up next to him and was like, "Yo, pull over." Like he left something in the cab. He got his Yamaha back, his digital rack, and then came back to my house. The guy came back, dropped him off, and he said thank you. And then he showed up and we did the stream.
That's a great story.
Yeah, man, it was hilarious. I would have felt so bad if like Mike Stern came over here to do the stream and then lost his shit he's had since the 80s.
It's like your faith in humanity is renewed, you know. Somebody picked him up and you know.
Yeah, had no idea who he was.
Yeah.
Just saw this guy running down the street.
But Mike, he was with Miles in 1980, 81, and he was using that sound.
Yeah.
And I don't really remember anybody before then using that sound.
Right.
So he's
in that specific way. I mean, there was some like
well,
Schofield was kind of Schofield and
Metheny
was kind of using some stuff.
But it was different. The sound, Pat had this like reverby thing. It wasn't chorusy like Mike's was. It was different. And a lot of people latched on to that, and they still use it.
Right. Well, he was he's like, man, I still have all my same stuff, man.
He's like sound innovator,
Yeah.
Sound innovator. Pat Metheny was a sound innovator. Mike Stern, Wes.
Oh yeah.
Sound innovator, with playing octaves with that dark sound. The thumb sound. And when I say sound innovator, it's something that the masses hooked on to,
Yeah, it kind of just changes.
It changed everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So.
Yeah. But you had some records with quartet. I mean, but I would feel like now your thing is more like trio, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the last 2 or 3 recordings I did.
Some organ
trio.
stuff.
Organ, yeah, organ trio. I've also been doing lately a piano, bass, and guitar trio.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy that.
Yeah,
I really enjoy that.
No drums.
No drums, no organ. Volume's a lot lower.
Yeah.
I can really appreciate the sound of the guitar more because the volume's lower and there's more nuances.
Yeah, of course.
So I really enjoy playing with that trio. But yet, organ trio. I haven't really done too much quartet stuff with piano, drums.
I feel like there was some record. Is Kenny Barron on any of your records?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's on the first 2 recordings that I ever did.
Okay.
Because the producer was friends with Kenny, Jacques Mouyal. Jacques Mouyal was a fan from Switzerland, and he was close with Dizzy.
Okay.
And Jacques had, the opportunities, the money to start his own little boutique label, and I was one of the first people that he signed.
Okay.
And he got Kenny Barron on board, and I had met Kenny before, from seeing him.
And Kenny played with Dizzy.
Yeah. Kenny played with Dizzy, and I see Kenny around town and this and that. This is before he became like really popular. And I think he's like really popular now in the jazz community. But back then he was just like, he was a respected musician, one of many, but he wasn't as widely known as he is now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Kenny Barron was on the first 2, and that was because of Jacques Mouyal. He also signed Claudio Roditi.
Roditi, Brazilian trumpet player.
Yeah, Claudio did 1 or 2 for Jacques, and he did 1 with Tommy Flanagan and Mario Rivera.
Okay, I don't know Mario.
Mario Rivera was played tenor saxophone with Tito Puente's band.
Oh, sure. Okay.
For many years, and he also played with Dizzy in Dizzy's special projects, big band things, and Dizzy and Mario were very close, and Jacques got him a record deal because no one had recorded him before that, So
it's kind of a lot of stuff happened. I mean, direct results of touring with. I mean, that's a major gig, man. 12 years, right? Around 12 years.
Yeah, it was about 10, 12 years.
Yeah. So a lot of your,
not straight, because there was a moment in time where I wasn't playing. He had got Walter Davis to play piano for about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And then Walter decided to leave the band, and Dizzy called me back.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I got the phone call at 2 in the morning.
2 in the morning. Yeah.
You got your passport? Yeah. We're leaving next week, going to London. Click. And then that was it.
Should have called him back like, how much is it paying?
Right.
This is the second time around.
Right.
I need more money.
No, Dizzy was the business was always cool.
Yeah, I mean a lot of those.
I never had to worry about the money was right, or the conditions were cool. It was
So he was always great. Because you hear sometimes, a lot of Miles was the same way. I think like they really, treated their band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think somebody told me that the top paying bands was Miles, Dizzy, and Sarah Vaughan. I think.
Oh no.
I think Sarah Vaughan.
It wasn't the Jazz Messengers.
No, it wasn't the Jazz Messengers.
Oh man, they broke in my room and they took your money.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've heard stories. I heard that story. Yeah.
Sorry, man, I can't pay you cats.
Art got held up on the street.
Yeah.
They took your money.
Yeah, man, I had my money in the right pocket. Your money was in the left pocket. They took yours.
Right.
They took the left pocket money.
Yeah. Old school.
Old school, man.
Yeah.
I've heard a bunch of stories. I mean, Ray Charles too.
Oh yeah. You heard those Ray Charles tapes? Have you heard those?
Which ones?
The live tapes where I was told it was the guitar player goes off on Ray on stage.
I haven't heard that.
Fuck you, Ray. You've never heard that?
No, I
gotta dig that out and play it for you.
I want to hear that. Man. I just remember there was somebody was in the band and they told me the story themselves that they were touring with Ray, and there was one gig where the promoter just insisted that the hotels were paid for. Mm-hmm. And Ray was like, well, my band always plays for their own hotels. And he was like, no, but we're covering it. And he was like, okay. So then he had the band pay him $35 each to stay in the hotel that the promoter was playing for. So they all had to go to his room and give him $35.
Oh, come on.
This is super jive.
That's jive.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Wow.
That's the.
No, fortunately, I never had to go through any of that.
That's cool. That's great, man. Because I feel like today, but even today, there's a lot of jive stuff happening. But a lot of people treat their band. They treat them well.
Yeah.
And the ones who don't, they get
outed.
They get outed. Or they
on
can't,
social media.
Well, now it would be social media. But even before, like, I've heard of cats all leaving the band leader in Japan or Europe. They just get on a plane and leave him out there. They don't say anything. He shows up to the sound check. There's nobody there, just sitting there with a saxophone.
Woo, man.
Solo sound check.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, if you mess somebody over too many times.
Yeah. Come back on you.
Yeah.
Shit.
About to be a solo concert.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but that's good to hear because, I mean.
Yeah, no, I
guys
never,
like that. And Dizzy was like, I heard a story you told. I think you told it on Facebook about Dizzy kind of looking out for cats, and Hank Mobley maybe one time was like,
oh yeah,
looking a little bit.
Yeah. Hank Mobley was at a gig I was doing in Philly, and he wasn't doing so well, at that stage in his life.
This was in the 80s. Or
late 70s.
Yeah.
Late 70s.
When did Hank die? Do you remember?
I think he passed away in the early 80s,
okay.
Maybe. I'm not really sure. But I was there, must have been 1979 in Philly. And Hank was like a down and out guy, He was like, Bowery bum kind of guy, and he came to see Dizzy, and at the end of the night, Dizzy slipped some money in his pocket. Mm-hmm. I saw it because I was sitting right there. And that was a beautiful thing that Dizzy did. That affected me.
Yeah.
It's like, gotta help the cats. Hank was one of the masters, of the music.
Of course.
And he was good friends with Dizzy. I could tell by the way that they were speaking to each other that they were close, And he just helped him out.
Yeah. And at that point, I mean, Hank had to have been, 10, 15 years younger than Dizzy? Or I'm not even sure.
I'm not really sure. But, he was younger than Dizzy, but he didn't look it.
Right.
He looked about 10 years older.
At that time especially, too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of cats got caught up in some messed up stuff.
Yeah.
But also, how was it? I feel like that was such an interesting time. Like guys who were in their prime in the late 50s, and then they still had some momentum in the 60s. Then the 70s came around, the disco and like funk and like electric bands and like Hank Mobley. Someone like Hank Mobley was just like such a pure, beautiful tenor sound. I mean, some of that got left behind.
Yeah, so some of them, they got caught up in drinking and drugs, and some of them, and others.
Do you think it was the drugs, or do you think they felt left behind musically, or like not in the?
Say that again.
Do you think it was drugs, or do you think it was like they felt like they weren't a part of the scene anymore, or what was hip or whatever?
Well, they probably felt like their time had passed, and they just weren't in the scene anymore.
Right.
So maybe like some of them got caught up in that. Some of them maybe went into academia, just start teaching somewhere,
right?
And do that for the rest of their lives, just teach at some university or start some program, inner city program for public school kids or whatever,
Yeah.
But Hank apparently didn't go that way. He went the alcohol way. So I can't tell you, what makes a person go that way.
Yeah, some of it is
kind of
it's unexplainable. It's just addiction,
Where they'd prefer to sleep on the street than straighten up and fly right.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get it. But anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of. You probably know a lot of people that are just not around anymore, like that you grew up with, or that you were part of the scene, or like older than you, and kind of.
Well, I don't know a lot of people,
should be around. I would say that
I don't know a lot
around.
of people, but there are a handful of people that I know personally that got caught up and OD'd or went a little nutty from alcohol, or
right.
So yeah, it's a sad thing, sad situation.
Yeah.
But artists,
And those bands, like Dizzy's band, everybody was cool. Like there was I hear stories about some of those bands touring, and like there was a lot, especially in the '80s, man. There was a lot of drugs going around.
No, everybody was cool,
Seems like Dizzy at that point would have been like, look, man, I'm not having nobody in my band be a junkie or like a.
And well, Dizzy smoked weed. He smoked weed, but that was the extent of it.
And he took his pants off a lot. So I could see the fucking pictures.
Yeah, right.
Why are there so many pictures of him in his underwear?
In his underwear, yeah. He's kind of weird that way.
Having a barbecue in his jaws.
I've told a couple other people the story, but like when I first joined Dizzy's band, I was kind of awestruck. That's Dizzy Gillespie, and I didn't know really how to approach him.
Maybe that's how he made everybody comfortable around him.
So one day we were in a motel, and our rooms were street level, and I get knock on the door.
Yeah.
It's about 3:00 in the afternoon. We had just pulled into the place, and I was unpacking my bags, getting ready to chill. The door knocks, and it's Dizzy with no clothes on except his underwear, powder blue socks and brown shoes, and a driving hat. and he just like knocked on the door. I opened the door. I was like, "What?" And he just started laughing, and then he like ran around the parking lot, and then ran back into his room, which was next door to mine, and then he stuck his ass out the door, and then turned around and looked at me and laughed and slammed the door. And I'm like, what the? That's some crazy stuff, right?
Oh.
And then after that, we had a lot to talk about. After,
right.
Then we were like, it was an icebreaker.
Right. Yeah. That's hilarious, man. Did you ever have like one of those kind of like bus moments with him, or like on a plane where you're just sitting next to him and he just starts talking? and you wish you pushed record on a recorder or
Oh
something?
well, yeah. And actually, I did a couple of times. I just have to like find those tapes. Those are classic, But he didn't. But he didn't really talk about Charlie Parker too much. He didn't really talk about that too much to me. I mean, he said like Charlie Parker was a good dancer.
Yeah.
He read a lot of books. They used to go to the movies together.
Wow.
Like in the 40s when
That's
they were,
what I
when they,
meant so interesting.
when they were just starting out. Like this is like 52nd Street period. What's that?
Yeah.
1944, 45. They were like popular then. But he said they would go to the movies. Like on Times Square. He said they would go to Times Square, watch movies.
See, that's what I'm like. I'm so obsessed with knowing about, like,
He said
guys
Charlie
like
Parker
Dizzy's.
Charlie Parker liked westerns.
Really? Yeah,
shoot 'em
cats were
ups.
really into westerns, man.
He liked shoot 'em ups.
But I've thought about, did Charlie Parker go to the theater and see The Uninvited, and that's why he wanted to play Stella by Starlight? Or,
Probably.
It's like
He
a lot
said
of
he was
stuff
in the
like that.
movies. Yeah, Dizzy said he was in the movies.
Yeah.
So,
And a lot of those killing tunes that those guys were playing. I mean, There'll Never Be
Laura
Another You,
and all that
Laura,
stuff.
like all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, great movies that were before the bebop era.
Yeah.
Like right
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
Like, so if those guys were probably just about to break through, and those were the popular movies, and like, Laura, Stella by Starlight, all that stuff.
And,
on
and,
Bird
and
with
you have to
Strings.
remember too, they were young then. Bird was in his 20s then.
Yeah.
And Dizzy was just maybe a couple of years older.
Yeah.
Dizzy was like considered the old man of the crew, but he was only 3 or 4 or 5 years older than Bird.
That's
maybe.
a big difference when you're 18 or 20 years old. Yeah. Yeah.
So they would hang out, do stuff that 20-year-olds do.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we all get caught up in the, the idea. Oh, it's Bird. It's
Right.
like, he's like untouchable.
Yeah.
But he was a man. He was
Of course.
He was a kid. And so was Dizzy.
They were just
regular-
two of the most amazing kids
Yeah.
that ever lived.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But when they weren't playing,
They were just
they were doing stuff that
everybody
does. So,
Yeah, that's incredible, man. That's so good, because that's one of the things I was thinking about. It's like, Chet Baker and Stan Getz and Dizzy and Bird. Like, are they getting all these ideas for, like, I mean, is it from the radio because the radio was promoting these songs that were in the films and on Broadway, or it was because they were actually at the shows on Broadway or in the audience at the movie theater, like checking these songs out? They're like,
I'm
damn,
sure,
we got to play that shit tonight. Like,
from what Dizzy told me, he said they Bird went to the movies.
yeah. Bird at the movies, man.
Yeah.
It's another album title.
That's an album title. Do all those tunes that Bird might have seen,
Right, yeah.
or heard in the movies. I just gave some stuff away.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
So everything's been, how you been dealing with the last couple of years, man? Just
Just trying to get through, the best
work,
way I
you
can.
work like crazy, man.
No. Well, I don't think anybody worked that first year of the pandemic.
I mean, like pre-COVID and like now it's like you're working almost every.
Yeah, but I'm working around town, but I haven't gone out of the country. Like you've been out of the country quite a bit. I haven't been to Europe since it's opened.
Yeah.
I think I went to San Francisco for a couple of weeks about 3 or 4 months ago, but that's it. I haven't really left New York since the pandemic. I was supposed to go when the lockdown happened. I was supposed to go to Italy for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks tour.
Yeah.
And that was it. After the shutdown, all of that shut down. So during the pandemic, okay, so I was kind of not petrified. What's the word? Immobile. It's like sitting there watching TV and blah blah blah, and not really doing too much of anything. Mm-hmm. We spoken earlier, getting my cooking chops together.
Oh yeah, a lot of people did that.
cooking a lot of food, watching a lot of Netflix. But then I saw, my friends teaching online, so I figured I'd give that a shot. I was never one to like teach a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but I figured I had to do something to get out of my head,
Right, yeah.
So I started to organize students. I let it be known that I was looking for students, and I at one time I had several more than I ever had before.
Yeah.
And but then after a while, it kind of slowed down with that, and then things started to open up in New York a little bit, and I started working here and there slowly, little solo guitar gigs, outdoors during the summer,
Yeah.
And then they slowly started having bands back, and I started getting my little band together and playing in places. But yeah, during the pandemic, I was teaching. I took advantage of all the grants and everything that were available, just to have some money,
of course.
in, money in the bank. But it was where we lived out in the Bronx. This also kind of was very shocking to me, was to hear the amount of ambulance sirens going up and down the street.
April 2020 was, and it was unbelievable.
Because we lived out near Jacoby Hospital in the Bronx, and the ambulances, it was frightening.
Yeah.
The amount coming up and down my street, all times of the day and night.
Right.
And what was happening. People were dying in those ambulances, and it was too much. But so that's when I started to try and get out of my head with the teaching and cooking. And
did you get into teaching? Was that something that you?
Well, yeah. I had some online students, and that lasted for a while, and then after a while, when it started to open up, then I kind of lost interest in the teaching stuff. I wanted to get back out and play.
Right. Yeah. So teaching it's just been something that you haven't felt like you really needed to do ever.
Yeah, I was never big on teaching. I mean, I have a few students now.
Yeah.
Maybe a few. I have maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But that's enough for me. For me, that's
well,
enough.
I always say people like you and for sure when I started playing, because I wanted to play music, not to teach music. Really.
Right.
And it's funny because I teach music now, but it's as a result of me having played music on the road and recorded with certain people. And for you, but have you been like offered any gigs that you've turned down, or it's just
I've never turned anything down. No.
But you would take
it. I had at one time I was going to Europe during the summer for master classes, workshops and things like that. Pre-pandemic, I was doing that.
Yeah. What do you like to talk about? Like, in those kind of, you keep it kind of.
Well, with the classes, you just going through basic, stuff about the guitar, basics about the guitar, and master classes. I usually just tell them my story and play a few things for them and take some questions, but the workshops, it's just the theoretical stuff and the technical stuff about the guitar, classroom stuff, the usual stuff. But and I was doing that maybe 2 or 3 times a year before the pandemic. But after that, all those connections that I had are gone. So I'm putting my feelers back out, and working in a university situation, I never really pursued that. I didn't really want to do that. I didn't
pursuing it is a little bit.
I mean,
feels
being in a classroom. Although I did have some students that would come to my home from like New School or City College or NYU, they would come to my house,
Yeah.
as part of the curriculum, so I didn't have to be like
In
a
the
class.
school. Yeah, I mean
didn't
that's
have-
what I used to
yeah.
do until COVID. Like now I have
Yeah.
to go. Like they don't let certain schools
Yeah.
don't let the students come to your house anymore during the
Yeah.
whole pandemic thing. So I have
Yeah.
to go on campus.
Yeah.
But it's very weird for me to like just show up there. I'm like, oh shit, I actually work here.
Are you at NYU or New School or what?
I teach at Manhattan School of
Manhattan
Music.
School, yeah.
I teach sometimes at New School. This semester I'm not, as far as I know
Yeah.
at the moment. So it's just Manhattan School of Music, Temple University. Well, it's Temple, I go to Philly. There's no other way to do that gig.
Yeah.
I have an ensemble there too.
Uh-huh.
So I go there and I teach whatever private students I have on campus and also the ensemble. And then sometimes Queens College also. But the main gig now is Manhattan School of Music. But I used to do that from home, and now
Yeah.
I do it on campus.
Yeah. Well, I did that too, and that was great, But
Yeah.
After the COVID thing, that's all done, So
Yeah.
got to start over.
Yeah, exactly. Well, man, there's so much you have to offer. So I'm sure, as long as if you want the students to be there, they're going to be there.
Yeah. Right.
So anybody interested? What are you? You just doing it on Zoom or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I had a couple in the past month that came to my apartment.
Yeah. Well, I'm letting people come over now
Yeah,
again. It's
yeah.
like this. Keep your mask on and stay
yeah.
over there. I don't know where the hell you've been.
Right.
If you've been to Smalls, you can stay in the hallway.
Bravo.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. I love Smalls, but yeah.
Yeah. So, just
But
got to
yeah,
keep
I mean,
moving forward. Got to
of
keep
course.
moving forward.
Of course. But man, you've had I mean, it's because I feel like I can't even think of me like let's say in 20 years, or 25 years or something. I just hope I'm still playing gigs, man. Like you've been on the scene playing gigs since for so long. Like has there ever been a time where it's just slowed down and you were just like, shit, this might be the end? Where sometimes I feel like that. I'm like, oh man, I think this is it.
I've
for
always
me.
been working. I mean, sometimes they're better than others. I mean, it goes up and down.
But I mean, I feel like you're playing all the time, man. Like, you got a lot of work, which is great.
Well, I mean, that's what I came to New York to do. Play. I came to New York to play with the cats.
Yeah.
and
I mean, a lot
play
of people.
for people.
A lot of people come to New York to play with the cats, but they don't play. They don't get to play with the cats.
Yeah.
So the guys that do, and the ones who have done it for decades or even years. I mean, people don't realize how hard it is to get a gig, and then what's even harder is keeping them and staying relevant, being on the scene.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2022. It's like to be on the scene for that long and still be working as much as you are, man. It's like a major contribution to the scene,
And I just have to keep my health up,
Yeah,
keep healthy and because I'm a lot older than you, so I gotta.
But that's the
I
thing.
gotta keep healthy.
I feel like you.
I gotta stay healthy.
I was like, man, Ed, he looks like I think I feel worse than Ed does right now. I'm just like, how I can imagine what I'm gonna feel like 25 years from now.
Yeah, well, just I mean, I burned the candle at both ends, at different points in my life, But
you told me you had a little shoulder thing. Recently.
Yeah, that was guitar related.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be something. I mean, I've already had plenty of stuff.
Have you had that? Where your shoulder just like locks up?
I've had stuff like in my neck and like kind of in
fingers,
but it's all coming
circulation.
From the back. It's all coming from discs in the back and pinched nerves and stuff like that. It's nothing. It's not tendonitis or anything like that, or it's not. But I'm
That's
just
some
like
scary stuff for guitar players.
I mean, and I've had stuff since I was in school. I remember being at New School, like freshman, and having pain and stuff like that. It's just, I think the moment you decide to play guitar, you're just signing up for a lot of issues physically with your body.
Yeah, the doctor told me that the shoulder thing. The shoulder thing was just the cumulative effect of having the guitar strapped on for years.
Yeah.
The weight of the guitar, it affects people differently, and it affected me to the point where I couldn't play for about 3 or 4 weeks at all.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I had a student the other day who he was like, man, I don't think I could play. I'm having some issues, and then I showed him some stretches that I do and stuff like that. And but then he was picking up the guitar and he was cool. But sometimes, there's always going to be something, man. But do you work out and stuff like that?
Yeah. You know, I mean, my workouts kind of slowed down during the pandemic. You know, I mean, I would go out and walk. I don't really run, but I walk.
That's what I do.
Distances.
I walk. I walk fast.
In the park. Yeah, I walk in the park. You know.
Yeah.
But I was going to the gym, 2, 3, 4 days a week before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And now, I've been remiss in going to the gym as much as that. But I still go once or twice a week.
Right.
Twice a week.
Yeah.
Now I have to start going more. Because I'm the type of guy that if I don't do stuff, I just like gain a lot of weight and it's bad on the body and
right.
And you can't make the gig.
Exactly. If you want to keep working, you got to be physically capable.
Fit, to make these gigs.
Yeah,
a lot of people forget that.
You look great, man. You're playing your ass off, and it's inspiring, man. It's just like I'm just thinking like ahead. I gotta make sure I stay on top of everything.
Try to stay fit.
Yeah.
You look good though. You're okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'm still giving I got another good 5 years until I really got to start worrying about stuff. But I mean, I still have to. I do some maintenance, just to make sure my back is cool and like arms and stuff like that. It's demanding, man. The guitar is not people to see. I don't know how rock stars do this shit, man. Maybe it's a lot of cocaine or something.
I don't know.
It's like, I was like, how are they playing 2-hour shows running around on stage?
Like the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, it's like they have to be on so much pain meds. I mean, which is sad is like you see like Michael Jackson and Prince and like all the pain meds they were on because they killed themselves performing, man. Yeah. And we're just playing some tunes, and that shit hurts. We're not jumping off of like platforms with platform shoes on.
It's all up in here. And, and it stresses out the rest of the body.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, it's inspiring, man. So, but thanks so much, man.
Thank you for having me.
For being here. And, I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Yeah, that was nice.
It's killing.
It's nice to play with you. It's great.
Man.
It was fun.
Definitely,
a lot of
definitely.
Fun.
So, thanks everyone for tuning in. That was great, Ed Cherry. If you want to check it out, the set we played is going to be up for 3 nights, so you can go. It's the stream right before this, and you can also contribute and help us continue with this. We're going to put up a couple of codes if you'd like. You can even just hold up your phone. You can scan the Venmo code, which is coming up now, or if you'd like, if you're international and you prefer to use PayPal, which is I think the only option for international, we also have PayPal code. So that's coming up now. So you can just hold your phone up, send in a contribution, and help this series continue. My next guest is going to be Peter Bernstein, and Peter was actually the first guest on the House Guest Live series. So he's coming back. We're going to sit down and do an interview, which we didn't get to do the first time because I was just starting all of this. I mean, and so it's evolving. So that's February 27th on the Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can come back and check that out. And there's a lot more coming. There's a lot more possibilities. I'm really excited for March. There's some really cool possibilities of what's going to happen. I'm just hoping. I don't want to announce it until I know it's happening for sure. So thank you so much. And check out the set with me and Ed. And see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.